Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Denise. I'm also known as Hey Wig Sister on Instagram and Facebook. Today is Tip Tuesday and I'm here to show you how to work with a wig that needs some adjustment at the part line and a little bit of the visible knots hidden. This is Bellissima in the color Sangria. I just recently reviewed this wig and I promised you guys at Tip Tuesday because on this particular piece, the part line needs some adjusting and it's not really cooperating, and I do need to pluck it so that it looks a little more realistic. In addition, the knots are just a little bit visible in the front, so I'm going to show you how to hide those with just a little bit of makeup. So if you would like to go along this journey with me, learn some tips for your wig toolbox, then stick around. If you haven't seen my review of this style yet, I will link it in the description in case you're interested in checking it out. Name Brand Wigs did send me this one for a review. So the first order of business is to get the part adjusted, and then we will do some plucking. So what I want to do is I want to figure out where I want that part line, and then I'm going to take a hot comb to it, make sure my hot comb is heating up, so that I can get it to set, since it's not really cooperating. So as you can see, it's really densely knotted and it's not very straight. I'm really struggling to get the zigzag out. So we only have a small little parting space to work with. If this were a full monotop wig, that would be a little bit more flexible. But what I want to do is I want to take my wide tooth comb and I want to get in there and I really want to try to straighten that part out as much as I can by taking that wide tooth comb. It's a little bit hard sometimes to do it on your head if you don't know what parameters you have to work in for that kind of thin monofilament. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to get that part adjusted while it's off my head. Another option would be, let me get this situated for you guys. Another option would be to put it on a mannequin head. That's one of the beautiful things about wig wearing, is that you can work on your wig off your head, which can be so helpful. If you wanted to do it on your head, then what I would do is I would just put my fingers in there and feel where that monofilament ends. That way you know what kind of limits you have to work in, because you don't want to part it too close to that monofilament. See how that looks a little bit better? It's still not real straight, and it's next to impossible for me to see this in my phone. All right, I'm going to put this on a mannequin head because it's just too hard to do it in my phone, and let's look at it that way. All right, let's see if this will work. So I've got it on the mannequin head and I tilted it so that you can see. So the edges of my lace are right here. These are the edges right here. So I'm trying to get it more in the middle. And so using my rat tail comb, what I should have done is brought some clips to clip them to the side, because it's not going to want to stay there. And that's what the hot comb is for. But maybe I will just use the hot comb on here. So let me make sure. Sometimes it's better to do it on your head if you don't know exactly where you want that part. If it's a mono part wig especially, that could be really important. So I'm just going to spray a little heat protectant on. I'm just using John Renault Heat Treat. It's just the first thing I ever bought, and I don't heat style wigs very often, so I haven't used it a whole lot. So I have a lot left. Any heat protectant will work. You just want to put some protection on those fibers. Now I'm going to use a hot comb. I turned the brightness up a little bit. Let me see if I can get it to go down so that you can see the wig okay. So this is just a hot comb. It's a Hamfu, I don't know, brand. I got it on Amazon a while ago, and I will link it in the description. Let me turn that brightness back up for you guys. So, because this wig is so dark, it's throwing off the white balance on my camera. Okay, so what I did, I put some of that heat treat on, and now I'm just going to try to set that part by using this hot comb. Make sure that you don't make the temperature higher than 350 degrees. I would recommend trying to start at 300 and see how that works. Now, when you want to shift heat-friendly fibers, when you want to change the style, you do have to wait until it cools for that style to set. So I'm just holding this in place over here while I let that set. And then we'll do the other side. I'll probably do a little bit of this on my head as well, but I'd like this part to stay in place at least and long enough to get it on my head. Making sure that cools down. All right, let's get this on my head and then we'll work on it. All right, I am back and look at that, you guys. I haven't even plucked anything yet. I might really not have to pluck a whole lot. Just getting that part into the right place is making a huge, huge difference. So now I just want to make sure that I'm smoothing that part line out. And you want to make sure you keep whatever heat tool you're using moving. You don't want to hold it on these fibers because you risk melting them. Even though they're heat friendly, there are limits to what they can handle. So now I'm just holding it down, giving it time to cool, because that will help to set that and make it so it doesn't want to pop back up and go the other direction. The other thing to keep in mind, when you have monofilament, all of those fibers are hand tied into that monofilament versus when they're sewn in like a track on the back of a wefted wig. That means that the knots actually can move all around on its axis. So really basically 360 degrees all the way around when we're not underneath it, but 180 degrees around on the top. And which means you can redirect them to go a different direction. It just sometimes takes some coaxing to get that to work. Some wigs will redirect easier than others, but the point of this video is to show you what you can do if you're struggling to get those knots to redirect. If you're getting that part to change, you aren't just stuck. You can do some things about it. Now, you don't have to use a hot comb. I think that they can be great to use, but this is not critical. You can use a curling iron if you want to. Pretend the back of this is just like a curling iron. You can take it and you can do this with it. And that's also trying to put heat to flatten it out. You can chase it with a comb. So like if I were, this is really hard to do on my head, but if I had this on a mannequin head, I don't want to burn my forehead here. I could do this and then I could kind of chase it down with a comb. So you don't have to make a special purchase. You could use a comb and a hairdryer. The hard thing about a hairdryer is the movement it creates. And so we're trying to keep this flat and sleek so that we can get that to lay down. And if I were using a hairdryer, I'd have to have that concentrator nozzle, and then I'd have to just be really good at keeping it moving in the same direction so I'm not moving those fibers around. But you can certainly use whatever you have. I have talked a lot about hot air brushes in the past. I don't know that would work great for this application. Again, with the movement of the air, and we're really trying to concentrate that heat in this one spot. And so I really think if you can use a curling iron, something that's not moving those fibers around, that's best. All right, you guys, look at what we've got here. Oh my gosh. Look at how much better this lays. It was so heavy in this direction. I was having trouble keeping, I'd have this one wayward fiber that just knew that it needed to be on the other side, but couldn't quite get there. So that so far is so much better. I just am so thrilled. Now the next phase of this, and you know what? You can also use your hot comb to get some lift or some of the other things. So if you wanted a little more lift in the front, more of a swoop, maybe the fact that this sort of lays down in your face is driving you crazy, you can use steam But I don't think you have to with heat-friendly fibers. I think if you've got something that has enough temperature, you just sort of, just be careful of that lace front. You don't want to nick that lace front and cause fraying or burn it. But you can just, if you get some heat applied and then you sort of hold it up, let it cool. And then once that happens, you should find that you'll get a little extra lift. Again, you can use a hot air brush. For this, I think you can use a hot air brush. The hard part is we're not running that. See guys? Look at that. It works really well and it's really good to do with heat-friendly fibers. So hot air brush, the hard part is we're not running the whole thing through. We're just kind of hitting a small section. So I think a hot air brush might work. It might be a little challenging. Again, a hair dryer and maybe a comb or something could work. But if you find yourself constantly struggling with these type of issues with wigs, it might be a good idea just to pick yourself up a hot comb. I owned this thing for probably 1.5 years before I ever even used it. But now that I've discovered how well it works for applications like this and how easy it is to use, I'm so glad to have it and I do recommend it. I don't think it was terribly expensive. I'll link that in the description for you guys. All right, so next step. Let me take a look in the mirror, see how much plucking I need to do. I'll be right back. Gosh, you guys, I really don't think I need to do much plucking. Look at that. That is crazy how much of a difference it made just getting that part right. But even though I don't have to do a lot of plucking here, let me just, since I told you guys that's what was going to happen, let me just show you what I would typically do. Now, plucking is something you can easily overdo. So I want you to be really careful and go really slow. It can be challenging to pluck a wig on your head. It can be challenging, especially in your phone, to see what you're doing. But you can just go into that part line and pluck out hairs here and there that you think are problematic that will help open up that part line for you. It might be easier to do that on a mannequin head, which is why I think everybody should have a mannequin head. A canvas mannequin head is an invaluable tool for helping you work with your wigs. Another thing you could do is pluck the hairline. If you feel that you have a wig with a hairline, let me just look real quick here. If you feel you have a wig with a hairline that's just too dense, you could take and pluck a few of the hairs out of that hairline to make it look a little bit like more like a natural hairline with not as much density. You also want to be careful of the lace. You want to go slow. Try to make sure you grab only one fiber at a time when you do this. If you grab more than one, it's not the end of the world, but when you grab a clump, you run the risk of tearing the lace or the monofilament. Some people will go in and they will try to just take a scissors really close to the monofilament. I don't think that solves the problem of the knot. I've seen some people talk about trying to get it from the underside at the knot level. I haven't figured out how to do that. So this is the way that I do it, but there's always the risk that you tear those delicate features. So go slow, be careful. If you're trying to pull something and you feel a lot of resistance, just slow down. Don't, force it or tug it. See, this is coming out really easily and I'm just going really slow and steady. You shouldn't find a ton of resistance. And so that's just a tip for you guys. But that's how you would do it. You would just kind of look and see, how is that? Do I see any area that seems, oddly dense, like it wouldn't look like that in real life? And then you just slowly start taking those pieces out of there. Let me get closer to my mirror so I can get situated and then I'll grab it. Just like that. And like I say in all of my videos, first of all, proceed at your own risk, but like I say in all of my videos, sometimes it's a work in progress. I feel like I have a piece that I didn't quite get off. I can feel it. You might do a little bit now and come back and do more later. Don't think that when you're working with your wigs, it has to be a one and done. You err on the side of caution, do less in the beginning. wear your wig and say, gosh, how does it feel? How does it look? And then you may determine you need to do a little bit more, but don't do it all at once because it's too easy to overdo this stuff and you don't want to do that. Okay, so now let's use some makeup to maybe make that part line look just a little bit more realistic. One last comment about the hot comb. This can be great for flyaways. If you are struggling with flyaways on a heat-friendly wig, you can take a hot comb and just run it over the fibers all across. If you really want to make it more sleek and less flyaways, a hot comb will work great for that. You can't use these hot combs on regular synthetic. They just get too hot. They can't handle that kind of heat. So what I normally do for regular synthetic is I usually spray it with a little bit of water, and then I take a hair dryer and a wide tooth comb or something that's going to be gentle. Wide tooth combs sometimes don't work very well, but you could take a regular comb just for that part and take a little water and a hair dryer and sort of chase that hair dryer with your comb, and that could really help make a difference in the flyaway situation on a regular synthetic. All right, so for makeup, you can use anything. You can use foundation. I have this old foundation that I never really liked for my face. And so sometimes I'll use this to help make a part line look a little more realistic. Sometimes I just use powder, face powder. This is an old one, again, that I never use. I think it's like CoverGirl or something, and that I just hung on to. And so I would just experiment. It depends on how much intervention your wig actually needs, what you're going to decide to use. So let's try a little bit of powder. And I really love these little brushes that I got on Amazon. They come in a multi-pack. Oh my goodness, this is so hard to see. Now this is going to be too heavy right now. It's going to get on the hair. So I'm just going to start here. And then one great tip for getting rid of any excess is just take a spoolie and sort of clean up the hair. You might need to take a wet paper towel. It depends on what you're using and how much too much you got on there. That's a really quick way. Now I'm just sort of smoothing it in. Just be careful because it will grab those hairs and you don't want to fray the hair. Sometimes that's all that's needed to make the part look good. So that's one option for you. Another option is to use, like I said, foundation or makeup, and you can see it went right through that monofilament. If I were to use foundation or makeup, I would do that on the underside of the wig because you don't want to get that all over the hair fibers. It's just a little bit harder to get off. So often, if I'm going to use foundation, I'll just put a little bit on my hand. So I have a little bit of a palette to work off of. And then I really like these spoolies that have a brush on the end. I also use these for my eyebrows. And I can link that in the description as well for you. But then what you're going to do, you're going to find where that part line is. You're not going to put it on the whole monofilament. You want to find where that part line is. And that's where you want to dab it. So what I like to do is I like to turn my wig right side out. I like to put my finger right over that part. And then when I flip this over, I can actually see my finger through, and that's where I'm going to put on the foundation. And I'll just start dabbing it on right where my finger is. Now it will go through, so you don't want to use a lot to begin with. And then I take it and I flip it back over, and then I sort of press, I don't add more, I sort of press it back in the other way. Just trying to sort of get it set in there. Just like that. And what color you use is just going to depend on your own skin tone. I think typically you want to use something a shade, potentially a shade or maybe two lighter than your face makeup, because your scalp tends to be a little bit lighter. But then you've got the scalp looking a little bit more realistic, and it will also blur those knots, which can be so very helpful if you have a wig that has visible knots. And again, if you get too much on, you can just, use whatever you need to get it off the hair fibers. You can use makeup remover even if you get it all over the hair fibers. But now take a look at that part. Isn't that so much better? Really does not take much. Now, if you use foundation, it will not wash fully off. So this is something that's always going to have, the cap will always be stained with that color once you use it. I don't know why you would want to take it off. Maybe if potentially you want to sell that wig later. So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about the knots on the front. Again, you can use whatever you feel you need to use. I've got some hair stuck in there. Sometimes when I have wayward hair fibers that just don't want to cooperate, I just pull them out. All right. Oops. I wasn't paying attention and I got some on the hair. That's all right. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you can take this and you can do the same thing here. Instead of using foundation, which I think I can tend to overuse on the front here, I'm just using the powder. But again, it's whatever works best for you to achieve the look you're going for. I just want to blur those knots just slightly. I really can't see very well in my phone. And if face powder isn't doing it, then I'll move up to a foundation or a stronger product. Another thing you can do is get the brush just a little bit wet and then use the powder, and that will make it stick a little bit better. What do you guys think? Does that look a little bit better? You're gonna have to tell me because I can't see in my phone. And you'll just want to use something that works with your skin tone. And that's it. So set the part using heat, pluck if need be, pluck the hairline. If it's too thick and dense for you, use makeup to make those knots blend. Pretty basic. You probably own quite a few of the tools that you would need to even do this. Let me know if you guys have any questions. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.